Hello, welcome you guys, here with another deck profile from True Villains. Today we're going to show you the Eosmon deck that I've personally been playing, and none of my friends are. It's a pretty niche deck, but in general, if you like these type of spammy, like minion, like board presence based decks, I think you'll really enjoy this one.
Skyline is jealous, I'm looking at you, how you shine.
Alright, starting off with the level 2s. Now, here's the thing, with the eggs, it's not really too important actually which ones you play, I found from personal experience, because you're rarely ever going to get to Digivolve one. So I just put basic ones in that just, Pinamon just lets you draw a card if you happen to trade, which also doesn't happen very often, but if it does, the draw effect is going to be really nice, because eventually you will run out of hand cards if you keep playing on into the mid game. Like generally you will have less cards than your opponent because you're not playing around the evolutions. And the argument I just put in there because if one of your Digivolve Digimon survives a battle and it gets unsuspended, it gives you that nice extra memory, which really helps with further Digivolutions to your board. Alright, the level 3, in fact the only level 3 that you'll have in your deck if you follow this guide will be Morphomon. Now, you can consider yourself very lucky if you get this in your opening hand, especially because it lets you draw a card, and on top of that it's also a searcher. Now, like I said before, you're going to run out of hand cards pretty quickly, so having that extra draw on the Digivolution plus the Undeletion effect, which lets you reveal top 5 cards of your deck and then add one Tamer, Mono Bellucci and Eosmon as well to your hand, that's a significant advantage that you're going to carry on into the mid game. Now, you're not going to have this too often, but still it's nice to have. Like, it's like kind of a lucky opener that you can expect from this deck.
Darkwave.
So now the only level 4 that you're going to play as well is now obviously Eosmon. Now, the Eosmon on level 4 lets you get your tempo out really quickly. So in the early game, you can start a match out by playing this directly on the board. Now you're giving your opponent 4 memory, which is generally not that good, but the value you get out of it, like you get a solid body on the board plus a Tamer, that is going to be extreme value, and it's very hard for your opponents to compete with that. Now, you have to keep in mind that the on-play effect also lets your opponent play a Tamer, so you need to be careful if you play against a heavy Tamer-based deck, that you don't just, go all in with that, because they get the tempo advantages as well, and you are paying 4 memory for it, so you need to be really careful, because getting in Tamer and 4 memory, that could cost you the early game, and that's very dangerous. But if you get that advantage, you will have a huge tempo swing. Now, the next cards, I'm not even going to lay out because there's so many to them, but take my word for it, there's 21 of these cards here. Now, usually you can't do that, but with this specific Eosmon on level 5, you can include up to 50 copies of it into your deck. Now, the disadvantage that it has is you'll most likely have this in your opener like a couple of times, and playing it directly is going to be very memory inefficient. However, once you get that steamrolling effect with its effect, that when you attack, you can actually play another one of these or a level 4 Eosmon from your hand as well. That is going to steamroll into the mid game, where you can eventually like gain so much tempo and so much board presence out of that your opponent can't really deal with it. Now, keep in mind, there are a few decks which have like mass removal, specifically for these type of wide boards, but generally it's much more difficult for them to accomplish because you are playing Eosmons for free from your hand, which is a really powerful effect. And it goes exponentially. So once you get 2 on the board, the next time will be 4, and so on. And you only have to do this a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, so that eventually you can one-shot your opponent. And that's relatively early, like compared to other decks. So you will have a huge tempo lead once you get that going. So try not to worry about giving your opponent too much memory, because the tempo is just so huge. You will not even have to deal with the late game cards anyway. So going on, we're going to the Eosmon level 6. Now, in some situations, in some games, you will have to face opponents which, from that initial memory boost that you gave them by playing a bit inefficient, they will have big stuff on the board, big blockers that you can't remove normally, that you can't trade into. And that's going to be very problematic for you, especially if you want to keep that steamroll going into the mid game. This is where Eosmon level 6 comes into play. Now, the card says when digivolving, you can, for as many Tamers as there are on the board, which also includes your opponent's Tamers, by the way, so your opponent's Tamers count for this effect as well. You can put, for each Tamer, you can put an Eosmon that's level 5 or lower from your trash into the Digivolution cards, like under the card. If you do this effect 2 or more times, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon, which is a very powerful effect. So if they have a board centered around one big Digimon, you can just delete that outright with this card. Now, the Digivolution cost of this card admittedly is kind of high. It is 5 memory, which is a lot. So you can't attack immediately with it, and you probably have to wait a turn. Now we'll get around this effect with a few cards that I'm just going to show you. But also keep in mind that with this Eosmon level 6, you will get security +1 for each 3 cards you have under this in its Digivolution. So that's going to be also helping you with your late game finish. So if your opponent still has a few security cards left, you can just instantly delete those. Keep in mind that you actually need to have enough Eosmons in your trash to make this effect really count. So just make sure that you have enough of these. So when you have these situations in the early and mid game where you just trade blindly with your Eosmon into the enemy security or their blockers and they die, that's actually not too bad, because you're setting yourself up for the level 6 Eosmon in the future. Now, I'm running 4 copies of these. Keep in mind that only the level 5 Eosmon can be run up to 50 times, so for the rest, unfortunately, it doesn't count. Now, this is a tech option I put into the deck. It personally helped me win a few games by itself because, like I said, you're sometimes not even going to have enough Digimon to make use of the Eosmon level 6 of its Digivolution effect. So sometimes you need to be creative with that, and here's where Puppetmon comes into play. I only play 1 copy of it, but it won me a few games by itself because in the right situation, it can actually make it so you just delay your victory for 1 more turn. So if you need to buy some time, you know, they got a few blockers or whatever, big Digimon on the board, you can actually just suspend it. And if they attack before, which to be honest, against Eosmon, no one is going to really care or think that anything bad is going to happen with their suspended Digimon. You can actually punish that really hard. So with this is kind of delayed effect. You are giving your opponent 11 memory, which is admittedly a lot, and they can make huge board swings or tempo swings with that, but their board is not, in the current state, is not really going to matter, because like the card effect says, on play you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and they can't unsuspend them, so in the next unsuspend phase. So that is going to help you just win in the following turn. Now, in the rare case that this actually, the game still keeps going, you can actually gain 1 memory when attacking. It's a minor effect, but it's still nice to have. So I just included this as a attack option, but you can include whatever you want for this one. Alright, going up next we have the Tamers. Now, you saw from the Eosmon level 6's Digivolution effect that it's pretty heavily based on the Tamers that you or your opponent have in play. Now, sometimes your opponent's not going to have too many Tamers, which is fine. In that situation, you will still have plenty to go with. In my version of the deck, I run 4 times Minoa Bellucci, which is actually has a really great synergy with the deck. So she does cost 4 memory to play, but you have a few ways to cheat her out. Like, for example, the Eosmon level 4 we talked about before. And at the start of your turn, obviously she's a 4-cost Tamer. She's going to set your memory to 3 in case you have any less at the start of your turn. That's always nice to have on a Tamer. Now, the interesting effect, especially with this deck, is that when you play an Eosmon, and keep in mind, you are technically playing an Eosmon once you play it from your hand with the effect of your other Eosmon. So when your Eosmon attacks and you summon one from your hand, that counts as playing one. So you can activate her effect for that. Now, what she allows you to do is, once you do that, you may look at 3 cards, the 3 top cards of your deck, and you can add 1 Tamer or a Digimon with Eosmon in its name to your hand. Now, as a draw engine, which you actually desperately need in this deck, she is the excellent option for this. Once you have her once or twice in play, you will never run out of cards from your hand, basically, because you'll always keep redrawing Eosmons because you have so many of them. So she's an absolute must-have in this deck 4 times. There's no way around it. Now, another nice effect that she has is, while you have an Eosmon in play, your opponent's Tamers, they can't unsuspend. So if they have any Tamers that have any useful or important effects on them that are once per turn, like locked, you can keep them suspended as long as you have an Eosmon in play. Now, you gotta make sure that you have one Eosmon in play, so if you want to make use of that effect, you can't just trade or attack blindly into their security, because you might not have any at the end of the turn. But still, it's a really nice addition to the deck and an absolute must-have. Now, the other Tamer we have is Analog Youth. Now, on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and among them you add 1 Digimon and the rest you trash. Now, you might be thinking that in a deck like this, it's not that great. You're only drawing 1 essentially. But keep in mind, for the Eosmon level 6 to have its effect properly activated, you actually need a few Eosmon in your trash as well. And this really helps to accelerate that, because in the early game, if you play one of him, you'll already have a few Eosmon in your trash without actually having to do something for it. So you can get the effect of the level 6 Eosmon active pretty early. Now, his other effect is that on all turns, if one of your level 5 or higher Digimon cards with the evolution card in its Digivolution is deleted, you can suspend this Tamer and you can gain 1 memory, and actually you can hatch a Digi card in your empty space. The thing is, the hatching is not that relevant, because most of the time you're going to have your egg there anyway, and not you can't really activate this effect. However, the one memory that you gain is actually pretty important, and it's going to allow you to make huge plays, especially with the Eosmon level 6, because like I said, the Digivolution cost for it is actually pretty high, it's 5. So this definitely helps with this. Alright, starting off with our option cards here, we have, first of all, we have Cutting Edge, which is pretty common in this type of deck because it synergizes so well with Eosmon. Admittedly, it is a bit expensive, but for 6 memory, essentially, you're getting an Eosmon into play, and you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon while you're doing that. It deletes one with the DP with equal or less DP than your opponent's Digimon that you're targeting. So, in essence, you have to see this as a really great value card for this deck. I mean, you would pay 5 memory to play the Eosmon anyway, so you can actually subtract that from the total cost. So in essence, you're basically deleting one of your opponent's Digimon for 1 memory, which is actually insane value for this deck. Now, if you get really lucky, you actually have this card in your security, which instantly activates this card's main effect. So when your opponent attacks with a wide range, like a huge portion of small minions, you get to delete one of theirs and potentially set up your own next big push for the next turn. And that in itself can be game winning. It certainly has won me some games, and it's definitely an auto include in this deck. The next option card we're going to talk about is winrate 60%. Now, this card is actually used for a combo in this deck, and I'm going to show you later on why it's such a big combo, but it certainly is really nice. I'm going to talk about the effect later. Just keep in mind that it's really good, and you definitely cannot play Eosmon without this. It's actually an essential. The next option card is Needle Spray. Now, the effect is pretty obvious. You get to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, but so does Flower Cannon, and you might ask yourself, why do you not just play Flower Cannon instead? If you get it in your security, you just suspend all of your opponent's Digimon. And that is a valid point. However, it does not suspend blockers, which is actually your main concern during the game. When you have your turn, you want to get to the opponent's security immediately. You don't want to worry about any blockers or anything preventing you from attacking efficiently. The main advantage with Needle Spray is that you can actually choose which of your opponent's Digimon you want to suspend. So you can suspend their blocker. And on top of that, unlike Flower Cannon, you can add this card to your hand as well once the effect is activated from your security. So the value you get from that is that not only does it activate in your security, but you actually get to do it again next turn to set up a potential finishing push. The last option card I want to talk about is Green Memory Boost. Now, admittedly, there aren't that many green Digimon cards in your deck, so I wasn't sure if I'm going to include this. However, the gain 2 memory effect is very strong, but if you're playing this deck with a different set of option cards, you can actually replace this pretty easily with other ones. I was thinking about putting a 4th win rate 60% in this deck, which would absolutely be viable. You can definitely do that, or just another Needle Spray for that matter. Alright, starting off with the combo we talked about earlier. So remember we talked about the option card win rate 60%. Now here's going to be the situation that occurs the most often. You have 2 Tamers or more in play. Important is that you have Minnow Bellucci actually in play, or you have 3 memory anyway to spend. But the problem is that if your opponent has a big Digimon that you need to remove because it has blocker or whatever is an essential part of their combo, is that you have your big Eosmon that you want to play out. And you have the tools to do that, but you would actually give up your turn for that, which is actually very important. And you want to get this damage in because you can actually, if you have 3 or more, for each 3 Digivolution cards from this Eosmon, you can actually get security +1, which is really important for this deck as you want to push fast. So what happens is you play win rate 60%, and you can put this in play. You can actually, the next time you digivolve another Digimon, you can reduce the cost by 4. Now this card obviously costs 2, so you're going to be set back to 1. And then you have to discard a card from your hand. Now you're going to have plenty of these, so it doesn't matter. It actually kind of helps you if you don't have enough Eosmons in your trash. You can discard one. And then you can reduce the cost of this Digivolution by 4, which makes it cost 1. So you Digivolve it for 1, and then you're actually at 0 memory. Exactly enough to keep attacking. You're going to place 2, or however many Tamers are in play, under this Digivolution. And now the effect is activated. You can delete one of your opponent's Digimon, which is maybe key to their combo, or blocking you from winning the game. You can delete that, and you can still attack with it, which makes it a really nice like finishing tool. Like you can win the game by itself with that. So this concludes our deck showcase for the Eosmon deck. I recommend you definitely give it a try. It's not the most meta, but it definitely is a lot of fun. This was the deck showcase from Team True Villains. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome content and more deck reviews.